Start out with the with this new one. It's going to be War on Drugs, and we're gonna look at an AP article via Fox News Channel online. This dates back to 2010, so it's a little bit old. And it says after 40 years, $1 trillion has been essentially wasted on the war on drugs because it's failed to meet any of its goals. Now, if we look at our debt, we should see that if $1 trillion has been wasted, and we should see that that's quite a large amount of money. Now, since then, we realized that more money has actually gone into this, so it's actually going to be a much higher amount than that has actually gone into this. Now, what needs to be understood is this is basically just what is used domestically. This is a big issue because this hasn't even had any impact. This basically is what covers your PSAs, what covers basic DEA spending, and that's about it. And that's pretty much what's covering, and then what's covering between the U.S. and Mexico for the war on drugs. That's it. It's not going into the actual what's really going beyond those two areas. And this is what's very, very important to know, because this war on drugs is a lot more expensive than $1 trillion. If it were only $1 trillion, then that's over 40 years. And that's hardly to say that that's that expensive, because that would be essentially that's only about $25 billion per year, and that's a lot lower than what someone would assume. But the fact is that's not what we're talking about here. What we really need to be looking at is what the actual real cost is. Now let's look at what can actually add to the cost. Now, first of all, we need to look at what we're actually incarcerating with people and how this plays a role into this war on drugs. First of all, we have 5% of the world's population, but we incarcerate 25% of the world's population. Now, how does this play into the war on drugs? Well, when 4 out of every 5 people in the prisons are actually on a drug-related crime, most often non-violent, you need to understand that basically these are people that are actually directly related to the war on drugs. Essentially, if you eliminate the war on drugs, we're actually incarcerating directly within our world population. We should only be incarcerating around 5%, and yet we're incarcerating about 25%. And we could essentially reduce our prisons to essentially 1/5 their size if we would actually eliminate this war on drugs. Now, when it comes down to the actual arrests, we're seeing from 1980, we're seeing that basically is we've been basically focusing on arresting on possession and not actual sales. Now, when it comes to actually smart policy, it would make sense that you're arresting on sales and not possession. But what's even more disturbing, if you see here, in more recent years, is arrest for sales has actually gone down, and we're seeing a spike in arrests and possessions. And this has actually been since Obama's been in office. And this should be a clue to what's being what needs to be done for the actual war on drugs. Now, that this doesn't include obviously the time during that's Trump has been in office, obviously, because it ends short of that. But we can, but as more of these drug laws are starting to be repealed, and he's considered decriminalizing marijuana on the federal level, that's going to obviously help a lot of these issues. And talking to people about criminal justice reform, and this is going to, and ideas like this is going to help a great deal. What's also important is to understand that while it's not essentially directly meant as being racist, the actual implementation and the impact of the drug laws are actually shown to be having a racial outcome because of where these people are living and how the cities are actually implementing the drug laws. Urban areas are more apt to be a lot more aggressive, whereas suburban and rural areas are more apt to be passive when it comes to drug laws. And this is what is producing high Latino and Black populations in the prisons because of this. Yet we see the white population much higher than anything else. And we see that when it comes to incarceration rates, we see blacks far above anything else than even Latinos and whites. And then what we also need to do is look into the actual idea of what's happening abroad. Now, when people are talking about the idea of we need to stop opioids from crossing the border, like heroin and such, we need to actually look at where they're actually coming from. This is basically 90% of the opioids, being heroin and morphine, are actually coming from Afghanistan. This is basically a number. This previous to the war in Afghanistan is Afghanistan was not a major producer of these drugs, but since then they've been a massive producer. And through what Thomas Massie has found, as we see in this article from Recent TV, is we see that he has been able to find that what we see is that he's actually found that from his testimony with SOPCO, this is back in 2016, we see that he has found that essentially they're out of the 8.4 billion used on counter narcotics specifically, that it has actually not helped one bit. That essentially they've only continued growing the poppy plants, which is the actual base plant that creates opium, it creates heroin, it creates morphine, it creates all these other opiates. And because of this, it makes people question what's actually going on here. And basically, he found out that a lot of this money is basically going into more theatrics when it comes down to the actual eradication process. And he asked actually in private, could they just spray Roundup? And this was a case where he was told that if they did so, it would anger the Taliban and the other drug lords and terrorist groups within the region, and if they did so. And this is something that's actually quite interesting because of the fact as if we actually went to actually destroy these drugs as what a proper war on drugs would be, that it would actually be too effective and eliminate them and anger the people. So essentially, this is nothing but theatrics and doing nothing more than just basically acting like we're doing something. And when it comes down to the actual look of what we're doing, is we need to understand that it's basically solely on the idea that we have a policy that's based on more theatrics than anything else, and wasting a lot of money for departments that don't do their job. And it's resulted in a lot of people going to prison. And if we go back to the idea on this idea of mass incarceration, we'll see that basically this mass incarceration is doing nothing but destroying families. And if we look at that, it's basically when we separate the families, creates more violence within these communities, which creates a continued destruction of the community, and it creates a continued cycle of gang warfare. Now, if we want to essentially end all this gun violence that both parties talk about, we should basically be looking at eliminating all usage of basically the war on drugs. It doesn't matter if you're from the left or right. I see people on the left and right say, oh, we need to keep the war on drugs. Well, guess what? You're wrong. If you actually care about people, you should eliminate it. Even when it comes to basically people who are in the things of selling drugs or in the thing of being as drug prostitutes or something, get people out of the actual darkness, because when you have these people like this, they're more often to be killed by serial murderers, which are actually a serious threat. And you don't want people to be killed just because they're by some group that is hidden from society, because they're not exactly what would be considered equal to like an upstanding citizen of a normal job, just because they exist on this certain other group. Now, when it comes down to it, is people should understand that they shouldn't be put down on this level because of this. That's why we need to understand that they should have equal rights with this whole point. And if we actually care about people from the aspect of lives, we should cherish them and get them the ability to have the chance of not being vulnerable and being killed. And we need to eliminate these vulnerable people from society by actually making them seen by society. And if we want to do anything to help them, we should actually, instead of doing incarceration, we can easily do opportunities for treatment instead, because treatment is easily more affordable than incarceration. We can even use these people as coming back to help the next level of people for treatment, as examples of what can become when you go through the treatment programs as mentors. And you can continue this through, and it can be a continued process for people. And it also, you don't want to be using this as barriers to voting, employment, or housing, or basically loans or child custody or anything like that, because it shouldn't be used as that type of thing. I mean, we can talk about I don't agree with public housing or public assistance as basically, because that only harms the actual situation of the actual way that people have self-respect for themselves and for the way the economy works. That goes into another different area, but when it comes down to this, it basically goes down to the way that policies need to work. They need to work for people and help them become productive members of society. We don't want them to be limited in production because of these laws. Even if you want to have the idea of you think the laws are going to make society better, you need to realize that basically if you look at history, the laws have made society worse. The drug usage is up a lot higher than it originally was, so you need to realize that something's not working right. And if you realize that, you'll realize that the minimum you need to do is go back in the other direction. And if you believe in the Constitution, you should realize that basically is that you should not be following the ideas of this, because you realize that even with the prohibition of alcohol, which was considered a dramatic failure, you should realize that at least that was done constitutionally and done through a constitutional amendment. And it doesn't matter what substance we're talking about, all substances are for free people are able to be put into the body unless you do a constitutional amendment to block that. Then when we're so if we're talking about this, we need to realize from that whole thing is that basically to actually block that, you need a constitutional amendment. It doesn't matter if you get a decree from some universal body such as the UN, as this whole policy started, which is where most people don't realize that this is where all these policies started, was from the UN. The UN made an agenda that created this whole thing in the first place. And that's where we have this whole problem that we have today, is because the UN stated that drugs are bad, we need them banned, and they were even banned because of there were different industries that were being taken over from such things as industrial hemp at the time, and they wanted to stop it. So this was one of the major ways they were going to do this. Now when it comes down to it, is we need to understand that this is something we need to stop. And when we realized that it was basically a crony capitalist thing that started in the first place, a mix of crony capitalism and a mix of anti-sovereignty that really started this, we'll kind of realize that basically just looking back to the Constitution will really fix the problem. Realize that the DEA has no constitutionality. It doesn't matter that some lawmakers decided that they'd pass a law. It doesn't matter that they pass a law and make an executive branch or make an executive department. That doesn't make it constitutional, because you can make the department, but they don't have any ability to enforce anything. To enforce any ban on any drug, you need to have a constitutional amendment. There was no constitutional amendment. You look up and down the Constitution, and you will not find one amendment that actually bans any drug substances. I mean, you can look up and down, and this is the whole point. When they did it for alcohol, they banned alcohol. When you had your progressives from San Francisco launch a attack on it to basically create this thing of saying that it was going to cause this whole big that it was causing this whole big problem, and it was going to lead to these whole big issues of debauchery throughout the world, that they needed to end drinking for people. So they created this whole big thing of ending the ability to drink alcohol. So when alcohol became a huge problem, they decided it was a lot easier to deal with when it was legal than when it was illegal. So they repealed the law not much after. And this is why you see those two amendments. When we see drugs, we don't see this, and this is the whole issue. And from all these points, we see that frankly is the war of drugs is unconstitutional. It really doesn't have a positive impact on people. There's better solutions, as we see, that we can go toward treatment if we want an actual government solution. For those who wish to have a government solution, it would there's actually pro-freedom solutions, such as just eliminating them and allowing people to choose what they want to put in their bodies. There's also the point of the economic solution, which is basically saying it's a complete waste of money because the actual output is not worth what you're getting. It's actually become completely negative. Drug usage is much higher, and you're spending a lot of money. and crime is way up from this, as we see, because we're seeing incarceration basically 5 times what it should be, when it could easily just be incarceration equal to our actual population around the world. Now, if you like this, subscribe, click the bell for the notifications, comment on the post, and I'll answer any questions and comments within reason as soon as I can. Please share the thing on all forms of social media. Please share it in the video. Try to get as many people to sign up to my page on YouTube, so we can get the highest amount of subscribers possible. And I will see you guys tomorrow. I hope you like this new video format that we have going. Bye.